Hello, Earthlings. We are now starting a new unit. So I'm going to start off today with a stop and jot. The question is, what do you know about the American Civil War? Okay, go ahead and get your social studies notebook out, pause the video, and jot down what you know about the American Civil War. Okay, I'm going to assume you have done that. So hopefully you have some background knowledge on that event. If you weren't aware, the term Civil War itself means when groups within the same country are fighting each other, right? A war has been started within the same country. And the American Civil War occurred between 1860 and 1865 in America, and it was the North and the South fighting a war against each other. Now, we're not starting that unit today. We have one unit before it that we're starting today, which is called The Road to Disunion. And we're going to look at the differences between the North and the South and what things led them to have such a bad relationship that they would eventually go to war against each other. So, as the first part of this unit, I've got another stop and jot for you guys. It's a little more interactive. What I want you guys to do is pause the video, and I want you to look at the label on your shoe. Okay, you might have to take it off and see what country it was made in, and then jot that country down in your notebook. Okay, go and do that now. Okay, I'm gonna assume you've done that. Now, I did that too with the shoe that I wore today, and my shoe was made in Vietnam. And in fact, I looked at all of the shoes I own, and every single pair was made in either Vietnam or China. Okay, and those are two really common ones. I bet a lot of you guys also had either Vietnam or China. Indonesia is another common one. I bet we had some there. Maybe the Philippines, maybe even India. But I want to show you something if you didn't pick up on this from me just describing those countries. Those are all countries in Asia, and in particularly mostly Southeast Asia is what we call this area. So you've got China here, you've got Vietnam there. Like I said, India is fairly common, is right there. Indonesia is right below Vietnam, and the Philippines over here, okay? And so I've got one more stop and jot for you, because a curious mind is going to be thinking of a question right now, and they're going to be asking, why are so many shoes made in this one area, right? So that's what I want you to try to take a guess at, okay? Go ahead again, pause the video, and jot down your thoughts in your social studies notebook to the question, why do you think so many shoes are made in Southeast Asia? Go for it. Okay, so I'm gonna assume you've done that. And I will say that, when you see something produced in a specific area, commonly two of the big reasons why you might see that made in a specific area are the resources that are used to make that are things that are able to be grown and found or naturally found in that area, or working conditions tend to be a common reason as well. Now, both of those reasons are relevant to this particular question because Asia's geography is well suited for rubber trees. So there's just massive rubber tree plantations in many areas in many Asian countries. And then the second thing is that many Asian countries pay their workers very low wages, right? Whereas America, we have got minimum wage laws. A lot of other countries have that too, that prevent companies from, paying their workers very little. A lot of those countries don't have that. And so they're able to make cheaper products because they're not having to pay their workers as much. And then they can sell cheaper products, which makes them hard to compete with for like American companies or other companies. Or sometimes American companies just use their work and then they do the other parts of the business, and then they just get the shoes made there and brought over here. So these things aren't an accident. I think the biggest thing I hope you take away from this is that when you look at a certain place, if you're in a new town or whatever, you're studying in a different country, and you see that, oh yeah, these are the common things that are made there, the types of businesses you see. It's usually not an accident that happened that way. It usually has something to do with that area itself, right? And geography is one of those big things. I'm not going to focus as much on the workers part of it today. I'll touch on that a little bit in a later lesson. But especially how so often geography is the starting point that begins to set up how a certain area is going to take shape. Okay, and it makes sense, right? If you have a lot of rubber being produced in Asia, a company that, factory that wants to make shoes can run their own rubber plantation, right? And they have that resource there, or they can buy from one, but it's not going to cost that much because it's not, far to ship or things like that. So when you have the resources nearby, it's going to make it easier for your company to make something there. So we're going to think about that in regards to the North and the South in, the mid 1800s, right? And like, how did the North develop one way and how did the South develop a different way? And both of those, in a lot of ways, have as a starting point the fact that they have different geography and they look different, and they developed in different ways, and then those differences led to conflicts later, right? That would lead to a civil war. So cause and effect is going to be a big part of what we are focusing on in this unit. And so I'm going to go over a few vocab words that are going to be really important to understanding the assignment today. The first one I have here is geographic features, and that is the natural features of an area, like the climate, the weather, what the soil's like, landforms like mountains, hills, or maybe it's flat, bodies of water, does it have rivers, lakes, is it on the ocean, things like that. Economic activities would be like the kinds of jobs that are available in that area, what kind of work do people do there. And then last of all, the workforce is like, who does the work there? What are kind of most of the people who live there and work there? And we mentioned another lesson, labor force. That's the same idea. Labor force, workforce, same thing. Okay. So for your assignment, you're going to be reading 9.2 tabs 1 through 2 in Discovery Education. And you're going to look at the North, and then later look at the South. And for each one, you're going to go down the row and you're going to start with what are their geographic features like? And then, how did that impact the economic activities that sprung up? How did that lead to like a lot of cities, not a lot of cities, so on and so forth? And then how did that then impact the types of workers that came? So you're going to see hopefully how each one kind of is a cause and effect down the line. And then you'll see how the South, because they had different geographic features, kind of had a different development for the way that it took shape. Okay. So I'm going to model that real quick, but with Champaign County. So when you do the assignment, you're not doing it on Champaign County. You're doing it on the North and the South before the Civil War. And you're going to use Discovery Ed. I'm going to use my own prior knowledge about the history of Champaign County and just kind of show you how the assignment looks. So for geographic features, remember I talked about, in the early 1800s, Champaign County was mostly swampy prairies. Okay, I showed you that video of the prairies in Meadowbrook Park, and I think that, and you guys are going to have more geographic features to put down, so I'm doing a quick version, but I'm just going to put one there. But that geography impacted how a lot of the towns started and developed, because actually around that time, many other places in Illinois had already developed into towns and had more things because the land was just better for farming and settling and so on and so forth. But for a long time, this region just wasn't developed yet. People weren't coming there and living there because A, they didn't want to have to drain the swamps, and B, they didn't think that probably the land was going to be good for farming. So because of that, though, eventually the Illinois Central Railroad was going to be built, okay? And they're looking for a route to go through, and well, hey, look, this place has a lot of space. So it kind of made it easy to make a straight shot right through Champaign County because of the space it had. So the geographic features of this area kind of was the cause behind the effect that these railroads really started to kickstart a lot of places around Champaign County. Rantoul was a railroad town. Champaign was a railroad town. So a lot of the towns sprung up because of the railroad coming through. And I'm going to add just one more thing here is that, when you at a railroad station, well, then you need, shops and hotels and stuff like that, because you got people who are going to have, stopovers there and stuff like that. So that's how a lot of those towns were born. Okay. So then we look at then the impact of like, okay, the role of cities. Did a lot of cities develop? Not a lot of cities. And what I'm going to say is not a lot of big cities, And I'll talk later about what kinds of things tended to set an area up for being a good spot for a big city. But it did make it a spot that a lot of like average sized towns would develop because of those, railroad towns. And that's why you see around us all kinds of average sized towns, right? It makes sense. And then the last thing is what kind of workforce originally came here. And immigrants initially was a big one, especially European immigrants, Irish and German and Swedish folks. And a couple of big reasons for that would be the railroad. That was a job that a lot of immigrants just looking for work, would flock to. And also a lot of Germans and Dutch came because they had already had like skills at draining land, because in Germany and Netherlands, they had to deal with this a lot. So that brought a lot of them there being like, we already have these skills. Let's go and let's drain these swampy prairies. And then, maybe we can make some money selling the land or putting a farm down. So that was a large part of the workforce that initially developed in that area. And that's the assignment, right? Like I said, you'll have more than what I put because the textbook goes in more detail, but otherwise that's how it works. So again, don't forget to use 9.2 tabs 1 through 2 in Discovery Ed, complete the whole assignment, and just be looking for how the cause and effect plays out through each aspect. And we'll talk more about this tomorrow. If you have any questions, you can just send me a message on Google Classroom. All right. Good luck, guys. See you.